God bless everybody today. It is November 9th of 2023. Turkey gets their report card from the EU and it was dismal. Turkey's not going to stay here much longer. He's been trying for 40 years. And you're going to watch Ukraine get it in like 2. Okay? So, I'm just saying Erdogan is not going to tolerate this kind of behavior much longer, and now that he's opened up those new front against the Kurds, I'm guessing we're going to have an invasion, because he's also going to go down into Gaza and protect those Palestinians also. So Turkey's EU membership didn't go very well. Here's what the new commission report says. So you can see this was just yesterday this came out, so trying to keep up with all this information for you. The European Commission's latest report on Turkey's ascension to the EU expresses concerns over democratic backsliding, the continued militarization of Northern Cyprus, and pro-Hamas rhetoric. So, like I say, Erdogan's been talking about going down into Palestine and protecting the Palestinian people, even though there's a Hamas government. Now, Turkey's going to be the big guy on the block here, and they're going to take Iran out here soon. And so these groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and these groups are going to stand up well with Turkey, or they're going to join Turkey or whatever, but they're not going to be the main guy in the room. They're going to be non-existent over time, and Turkey's going to basically control this whole situation. So Turkey continued to move away from the EU and did not reverse the negative trend in relation to reform, despite its repeated statements of commitment to EU Ascension. The report unveiled in Brussels on Wednesday states the EU has serious concerns on the continued deterioration of democratic standards, the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, and the respect for fundamental rights were not addressed, it added. So Turkey's just not really covering any of their bases, and of course not. He's a dictator. So Erdogan's going to do this his way and not their way. Ankara first applied to join the EU, then European Economic Community in 1987, and that's what I mean. He's been doing at this for a while. He's getting frustrated at this point as he's watching Ukraine fast-tracked into the process of the 27. It's not going well for Erdogan. He received candidate status in 1999. So look, it took him almost 12 years to get a candidate status, and he's still not there. And started negotiating the process in 2005, which is still going on today. 16 accession chapters have since been opened, but negotiations ground to a standstill in 2018 over the autocratic turn of President Erdogan following the failed 2016 coup. His government, however, continued to officially aspire to EU membership. So like I say, Erdogan's got a real problem here. He's not going to get in. And now with this rhetoric against Israel and how he's going to protect the Gazans and the Palestinian people, and with his genocide of not only the Armenians through Azerbaijan, but the Kurds in Syria and Iraq, which is going to be your next real problem down here, is when he comes in and actually leaves the EU, comes into Syria and Iraq, which they're bombing the whole northern front of that already, applying pressure to the Kurds right now. So that's a real problem. And we're seeing multiple attacks, I think up to 45 attacks on U.S. bases. And I think we finally retaliated twice in the last 48 hours or something. It's been terrible. Indicates, however, the commission said Turkey remains in the early stage They've been here 40 years, almost. Preparation in areas including the judiciary and the fight against corruption, with his country refusing to implement a number of rulings of the European Court of Human Rights. Human and fundamental rights are seen as deteriorating and seriously backsliding. Regarding civil society issues continued while political pluralism was undermined through the targeting of opposition parties and politicians with allegations and gag laws, the report states. Ankara's position on several foreign policy issues, meanwhile, remain at odds with the bloc stance. And there's 27 in the bloc. Its alignment rates with the EU on foreign and security policy stands at just 10% this year, a timid uptick from 8% in 2022. So they're just not gaining any ground here. It's just a real problem for Turkey. He's really frustrated at this point on where he's going to go with this. And the only real option for him is to leave at this point. It's just that simple. The candidate countries, for instance, are expected to align with sanctions the bloc takes against other countries, but Turkey has not endorsed any of the 11 packages of restricted measures the EU has imposed on Russia over the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Commission remarked that Turkey's rhetoric in support of terrorist group Hamas following its attack against Israel on October 7th of 2023 is in complete disagreement with the EU approach. So, look, this is actually backsliding him, okay? So he's going to know this. Erdogan's not dumb. I mean, you got to understand, this guy's a chess player. He's playing the board right now with the whole Middle East, Africa, and a few other places. So, you're going to see how this turns out real soon. He'll come into a major, he'll be a major player soon. He's going to be the major player in the Middle East as we move forward. The Commission also remarked that, the Commission, I'll read this again, remarked that Turkey's rhetoric in support of terrorist group Hamas following its attack against October 7, 2023 is in complete disagreement with the EU approach. It's deplorable that no progress has been made over the Cyprus issue as Turkey continues to refuse to recognize the Republic of Cyprus and advocates for a two-state solution on the Eastern Mediterranean island, contrary to relevant UN Security Council resolutions. The negotiation framework agreed between the two sides has explicitly called on Turkey to actively support negotiations on fair, comprehensive, and viable statements on the Cyprus issue. Turkey's military exercises in maritime zones of Cyprus, as well as violations of their airspace, continued. The Commission report said and did the harassment of Cyprus fishing vessels, along with rare positive notes. The Commission said that there were no unauthorized drilling activities by Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean during the reported period, and that relations with Greece had improved since the devastating earthquake in February, and that was terrible. There was over 50,000. I think there was actually more, but this report indicates 50,000 people perished in those earthquakes. There were two of them actually, which really slowed Erdogan down right before his election. That was really an important thing. I believe God was inspired by God himself. As of February 23, violations of Greek airspace diminished dramatically, and no flights over Greece inhabited areas were reported. So just realize that he's not going to get this, he's not going to get in the EU. And now he's backslid quite a bit, and so it'll be a century before they allow him in this. And then Turkey comes out and says that the EU is unjust and biased on their membership bid, especially with Ukraine getting ready to just basically walk in the door. You got to realize Ukraine's a communist nation in general. They're not much better than the dictatorship that Turkey is, and hard to say what they've done. And it seems like our administration's been over there doing a lot of stuff with Ukraine, and so we don't really know just how good a government this really is. There's a lot of questions that should be answered just to have them rushed in, and here's, membership while Turkey's been sitting out there for 40 years. Erdogan is not going to be happy about this. Says the European Commission annual report on Turkey's long-stalled EU membership bid is unjust and biased, the Turkish foreign minister says. The report by the European Union's executive arm on Wednesday criticized Turkey's serious backsliding on democratic standards, the rule of law, human rights, and judicial independence. We categorically reject unfounded claims and unjust criticisms, particularly on the political criteria and the chapters of judiciary and fundamental rights, the Turkish foreign minister said in a statement. The Commission also said Turkey did not comply with the principles of law, rule of law, human rights, and fundamental freedoms in its fight against terrorism. The Turkish minister said the allegations were unfair and highlighted the insecurity of EU's approach and a clear double standard, adding that fundamental rights issues were contentious even among EU members states. The Commission report is meant to update Turkey's progress towards meeting standards for EU membership and constrain ties that are already troubled over immigration and, more recently, the war between Israel and Hamas, or Palestinian militants, Gaza groups. Turkey's bid to join the EU has been frozen for years after having launched membership talks in 2005. He's not going to tolerate this. He's just not going to. You've got the EU basically fast-tracking Ukraine here, and if you go into that, they weren't even hardly thought of before the Ukrainian war started. And it's amazing that war has been going on for a while now. That was in February 24th of 2022 when Russia actually invaded and did this escalation of this war that started in 2014. So this is going much longer than most people thought, and it's entrenched right now. Ukraine's not doing well in that war, and Russia's a big country with a lot of resources, and we just can't keep funneling. The world's not going to just keep funneling weapons to multiple wars here, so they're going to have to make some decisions on what they're going to do. And they're going to tell you they can't lose any of these wars, or it's going to affect them greatly. But you can't fight these kind of wars on multiple fronts and then have Turkey break out soon. Is going to be real interesting to see how they're going to handle all this. So EU will decide in December on whether to begin negotiation with assessing Kyiv's progress on reforms. So that's what I mean. Turkey just got told that they're basically going to get set back, that they're getting pushed back because they're not doing what they should be doing. And now within 2 years, these guys have already been in a position where they're being assessed to find out whether they're going to be a part of this 27-member bloc. So it's just interesting that the Commission considers Ukraine has sufficiently fulfilled its criteria, proved it continues to reform efforts and address remaining requirements under the 7 steps according to the draft of the report to be published Wednesday. On this basis, the Commission recommended that the Council open accession negotiations with Ukraine. So we'll see how this turns out. We'll see how long Erdogan holds up in this environment. I'm guessing he's going to break out soon. And you're at 1,422 days to the Feast of Trumpets of October 2nd of 2027. And so I think this is going to fast track to that date, which I believe is the seventh trumpet, and when our Lord comes back. And you may disagree with that date, but in my calendar, on my paradigm, I don't know the exact time or day he comes back, because the Feast of Trumpets is a 2-day event, and I can't tell you the hour he might come back, but he will fulfill the fall feast as the Jews believe he will. And so I have to believe it happens on the Feast of Trumpets in 27, prior to the end of the strong generation on May 14th of 2028. And you may or may disagree with that. That's your opinion. We will see how that works out in the next 1,422 days. You better get in your oil in your lamp. This is starting to really move fast. It's accelerating, it's magnifying, it's amplifying, and it's going to shatter the world soon. And by the end of this year, it's not going to look the same as we move into 24, and potentially a rise of Antichrist in the spring of this next year. So we'll see how all that turns out. And like I say, I'm not dogmatic. I'm just showing you the information. You can determine as we move forward whether it's going to happen or not. I've been telling you for a while, Turkey's going to break out soon, real soon. I can't give you a specific date, but everything lies out in a certain gap, a period of time, and we're moving in. Let's say if we're at 1,422 days of the Feast of Trumpets of 27 on October 2nd, and you've got the 1,335-day gap, you subtract that, you'll see that we're moving pretty quickly into tribulation here soon, and the birth pains and the sorrows are going to go away, and you're going to actually be in tribulation soon. Great tribulation doesn't start until abomination of desolation happens on the Temple Mount. That is the demarcation of great tribulation. Okay, but tribulation is the period between the signing of the treaty and abomination of desolation. Anything prior to that is the birth pains and sorrows. So if they're trying to tell you you're in great tribulation now, or you're in tribulation now, they just really don't know what they're talking about, because we haven't hit those demarcation periods. So you're in the birth pains and sorrows until the signing of the treaty. Then you have 1,260 days of tribulation. Great tribulation is where the abomination of desolation happens on the Temple Mount at the halfway marker that people want to call it, the 7-year halfway marker. But then you got to realize he shortens the second half. That's where the 1,335 days come in. And so if you take the 1,260 days, subtract the 1,335, you end up with what? 75 days on the backside. That's why it's shown that way on my paradigm. Okay? So, and you've got to look at Daniel. You got to look at a number of verses. It's amazing how he tells you that that's shortened period of time is for the elect. That should tell you that you're in that period of time where the elect are on the ground battling against Antichrist. They're chosen on the 7th seal, or around the 7th seal. You move into the first set of trumpets, the first 4 that devastate a third of the planet, and then you have a pit open, an Antichrist and a false prophet rise on the 6th trumpet. Guess what? These 144,000 are getting ready to go against that period of time when Antichrist is on the ground. Then you have the 7th trumpet in Revelation 15:1. And guess what? Right after that, you have a rapture event, which is the 15:2, verse 2. You see that sea of all those people from great tribulation. And then he what? He hands out the 7 bowls of God's wrath, because you're not appointed for God's wrath, which are the 7 bowls. You're going to be here till the 7 bowls, but you're not appointed for the bowl wrath, the wrath of God in 15:1. So I hope you're ready for this, because this is going to move quickly in the next few months. And if you're not seeing it, then it's probably being veiled from you in some way, and maybe you ought to be thinking about getting maybe a little better with God and Jesus, because for some reason you're not seeing the full picture yet. So God bless everybody. You have a great night. Get your oil in your lamp. Find the open door. Find Jesus. This is going to move quickly. Erdogan is not going to stay much longer, and he's going to break out soon. So be ready when he does.